Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Album Fight Club. I am your host, Mike Kane.
No! No!
Along with my co-host, Cody Boagrius Constantine.
No!
Cody wanted me to say my name is Boagrius, but I have to say that Cody's sounds way cooler than mine. So
I am forever known as Cody Belagrius Constantine now.
I think it's cool. I think it's going to stick.
What a wild day.
Maybe not. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a first for this podcast. Now, Cody, I don't know if you know, but we pretty much started this about a year ago at this point. We've been doing this thing for almost a year.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's wild to think about. But in that time, since we've done this show, we have not once had a situation where we had two separate bands come up in the Album Fight Club. It's always been one band, two albums. That changes today. In spite of the fact that we've had this matchup since like the beginning.
Day one.
It's always been there. We just always like push it to the back, but now it's coming forward. Two different bands this time. Of course, two different albums. In one corner, we have Nirvana's Nevermind versus in the other corner, Pearl Jam's 10. So obviously huge bands of the 90s, mega albums from the 90s. In some cases, I would say like two of the biggest records that come out of that decade, really, if you think about it, especially one of them, for sure. So we could have done like Nevermind versus In Utero or 10 versus any other Pearl Jam record, I guess.
It'd have to be 10 versus the second record.
Yeah, and really at that point, 10's just gonna kill anything it goes up against in the in the Pearl Jam camp, in my opinion. And I think, In Utero's good, but Nevermind kind of sits at the throne for a lot of people and for a lot of reasons. So I think this matchup in particular, having these two opposing bands go against each other, I think is more interesting than just doing like a Nirvana-focused one or a Pearl Jam-focused one. But as I've said, this is the first time we're doing this. So I'm not really sure how to set this up because it's not like we can just talk about the band overall. We got two different bands here. I do want to point out, though, that I was born in 94. Cody, you were born in, remind me?
96.
Okay. So we were born in the 90s, but neither of us grew up in the 90s. We're both arguably 2000s kids. And so we were not really there when these two records like really took over. I mean, we existed in some cases, but we weren't like there as like young people listening to this music. But obviously, if you were there in the 90s and you were a young person in the 90s, chances are you're either a fan of one of these records, if not both of them. I mean, it's hard to kind of be a young person in the 90s and not have immersion in either of these records. In particular, Nirvana's Nevermind, if we could just have this conversation first, sort of sits on this pedestal where a lot of media outlets and music articles like to claim it as the greatest thing the 90s ever produced. It's not even a matter of like grunge or rock. It's literally, this is the greatest thing in the 90s musically. In fact, there are certain musical outlets that say it's one of the greatest albums ever. I have a little factoid here on the Rolling Stones' most recent 500 greatest albums of all time. Nevermind ranked at number 6, people. Number 6 out of all decades, out of all genres, number 6. Cody, since I'm talking about Nevermind, do we want to do Nevermind first as our like first half of the talking points here?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, I don't really know how to set this up other than Nirvana and Pearl Jam were two bands in the 90s. These two records are pretty huge. But let's be fair here for a second. If one of these records is getting like the throne just based off general populace opinion, it's going to be Nevermind. Nevermind sort of has outlived its own legacy and become like religious to some people, in my opinion at least. And when you hear something like this is literally sitting on number 6 of the Rolling Stones' greatest 500 albums of all time, that immediately carries a lot of weight with it in terms of, okay, how do we even approach this then? Cody, how do you approach it? What's some base opinions on Nirvana, early opinions on this record, etc.?
So, first off, the reason that I wanted to do this matchup is because grunge itself kind of became an Ouroboros issue. Out of nowhere, record labels were like, Seattle has music happening. Let's go up there. Oh, it's gnarly. So you get this wonderful grunge explosion. You get Mudhoney, you get the Melvins. You get Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Green River, and Pearl Jam. The reason that I suggested these two is because when you have the grunge conversation, these are typically the two that people will gravitate towards. Now, what's really unique, before I get into my opinion on Nevermind, Nevermind is Nirvana's second record. 10 is Pearl Jam's first.
Which is unreal to think about.
Crazy. Absolutely insane. So, the beauty about this matchup is you have a band kind of planting a flag in comparison to a band of players who have been going for a long time in other bands. A lot of Pearl Jam is comprised of members of the Seattle grunge scene previously. Finally getting this opportunity, finally finding everything together, Eddie Vedder joining the fold and creating Pearl Jam, and then from there hitting this one massive push. And if you look at modern radio, there are songs off of both of these records that are mainstay modern radio songs.
I would argue that both these records, half of their songs on each you will find on like modern radio, which is also insane to think about.
At this point, it's crazy to think. I did the math earlier. 10 came out in 1991. It's 33 years ago. That's classic rock.
Mm-hmm.
That is legitimately classic rock. That's insane to think about. So, in my opinion, the cool thing about this is, all right, the media put, it was like Pearl Jam and Nirvana against each other. And of course, there was always like Alice in Chains, who, in my opinion, never got the reverence that they fully deserved. Soundgarden, who never got the reverence they fully deserved. And then you get into the weirder stuff like Mudhoney, the Melvins, things like that, where it's like, okay, this is going to have an audience. But what I wanted to do with these two is take a look and finally see if we could get an opinion on what we think is better. So, to be that guy, this is the official conversation. About this, after this, no one is allowed to discuss this issue further.
At least concerning us.
No.
Oh, this is the end of all.
This is the end of the conversation.
This is the ending of the musical canon.
It is.
Okay. All right. Well,
it is.
I don't think people are going to like it then. I'm just going to be blunt.
Oh, yeah. So, all right. Nirvana. Nevermind is my least favorite Nirvana record by a landslide.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So, as we've alluded to in the past on this podcast, and listeners who are maybe chiming in for the first time, I really, really like abrasive, chaotic music that has a lot of feedback, a lot of fight to it. It sounds like somebody went into a room and said, I'm going to make the guitar work for it, And so, listening to Nevermind, the record that comes before, which is Bleach, disgusting. A perfect, just like garage, almost like garage punk grunge record. Very little enhancements in a studio, just a loud guitar, loud drums, loud bass, Kurt Cobain. What comes after this? It's In Utero.
Mm-hmm.
They go with what? Steve Albini, right? Steve Albini says, hey, we're gonna do this live, essentially. Loud guitar, loud drums, loud bass, Kurt Cobain yelling. And then you get into Incesticide and things like that. And at that point, they become an art band. Essentially. They essentially become the modern version of the Velvet Underground, where it's a lot of feedback. It's a lot of like what we discussed kind of earlier with the Chariot. Real, just like abrasive, this is the art. We are making the art. And so my issue with Nevermind is that it's so, except for a couple of songs, so frustratingly clean and commercial that it almost feels like the joke got lost into itself. They got picked up, they got real big, but in terms of their bigness, it's like they lost a lot of the things that I think made Nirvana really beautiful that they would return to. There's nothing wrong with that. We all make a deal with the devil to discredit our art a little bit to push ourselves forward to then return to the same spot. But I think people listen to this record now and they hear something totally different from what I think that band wanted to make. That being said, it is hard to not immediately get perked up the second the intro to Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Well, hold on now.
Okay.
Let me give my preamble.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. Because it'll lead into Smells Like Teen Spirit. I can tell already this episode, for the very few people who are going to listen to it, but for the people who will listen to it, it's going to make them really mad. Because you come out of the gate, Cody, with "This is my least favorite Nirvana album." I'm going to let you know this is my favorite Nirvana album.
Wow.
Easily my favorite. But here's the thing. This is the most overrated goddamn album in the history of music. I'm sorry. It's not what everyone hypes it up to be. And maybe that's because we're not kids from the 90s. We were born in the 90s, but we didn't live through Nirvana. Maybe that's because we just don't quote unquote get it. Or, oh, you're just being pretentious. You're being contrarian. I don't know. What I do know is I listen to this album and half the time I'm listening to it, I'm like, I don't really like this. It's kind of fucking boring. I'm sorry. It does things that are cool in some moments, and then other moments I'm like, I'm gonna forget about this the second I go to the next song, especially when this record is so lopsided with absolutely amazing songs, and then the next song that comes after it is literally like a 5 out of 10.
Thank you.
It's like, you guys, and the reason it's my favorite Nirvana record is because admittedly it's got their biggest hits on it, really. Which flows right into the opener, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Now, I do want to point out, this is not a track v track. We're keeping that train rolling. Although there are moments where I think the track v track is kind of interesting, and I'll bring them up as we get to them. We're just going to talk about this record first, and then we'll talk about 10 and go from there. Like I said, Rolling Stones claims this is the 6th greatest album of all time. Give me a fucking break, dude. I looked at some reviews from outlets that reviewed the album, and every single one, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, A+. I'm like, come on, guys. I know it's big, and I know it's huge, and I know it's got staying power, but are we really going to hype this thing as the greatest thing that's ever come out of the 90s, the greatest thing that, was ever done in grunge or music or Americana, whatever, right? You get to Smells Like Teen Spirit, which, like you said, as an intro, as an opener, as a statement for this album, it's their biggest song for a reason. And it's great. It's fantastic. The performances across the board are great. It gives the mission statement of this album so well.
Yes.
Right? It's so clear that okay, this is first because it is Nevermind. It is the album, right? You're going to listen to 40 more minutes of this, basically. And, I like the song a lot. Is it, according to VH1, when they did their list, they did this random series of TV specials where they're the 100 greatest songs of the 80s, the 100 greatest songs of the 90s. Guess what hit number 1? Smells Like Teen Spirit. Number 1 greatest song of the 90s. Are you out of your mind?
Unreal bias. That's impossible.
I can list 20 songs that are better from probably the year this came out, if I'm being honest. You're going to bring up the whole decade of the 90s and tell me that Smells Like Teen Spirit is number 1? Really? Okay. Guess I had to be born and, 16 years old and a skater punk when this album came out. Then I think this is the greatest fucking thing in the world. I'm sorry, it's not. It's a great song. Don't get me wrong. It Smells Like Teen Spirit is iconic and it's good. And in fact, in moments, it's great. But greatest song of the 90s? What are you fucking talking about? There's my piece. Go ahead, Cody.
Dude, I cannot believe I was so nervous that Mike was going to come in here and be like, this is the greatest thing to ever happen.
No, and I'll tell you right now, not to spoil it, I think 10 is such a better album than this. And I'm going to go off about 10 because I think 10 just completely stomps this record.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There are a couple moments where, in my opinion, Nevermind shines. So actually I did a track by track just because I figured it'd be fun to do, just to see where my head was at with these. I mean, here's my issue with Nevermind as a record, right? It became the Coca-Cola logo. It became the thing that you didn't want it to be. You don't want Nirvana didn't set out to write the biggest fucking record of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
They had no ambition. They wanted to just make a good record. And so every time I hear these songs, I don't hear them as like as a 28-year-old dude who like has a job. I hear him as like the same 14-year-old that heard this and immediately was like, "Oh, I bet I can call my mom a bitch." Like,
or like, watch me do this ollie, bro. Like, that's what I think about when I hear this song. It's just a bunch of skater kids.
Yeah.
It's like that. I wasn't there for that. So is that the reason this doesn't hit me as hard?
Yeah, dude, we get it. You're still in a bottle of you know, margarita mix from the gas station. You're not cool.
Yeah.
So I think for its merit though, this song in particular happens and you can immediately tell that something was going to change after. Like, it sounds revolutionary. It sounds, in comparison to the popular radio of the 90s, I suppose, this sounds above and beyond more organic. You know, it sounds like people actually got into a room and recorded music. Beyond that, the utilization of, you know, the loud intro and then like a quiet verse, big chorus, quiet verse, incredible. The guitar solo, awesome. In my opinion, there is a song on 10 that is a better encapsulation of the 90s. And when we get to it, I'll tell you which one it is.
Well, would you prefer doing track by track?
I
didn't know that was I thought we were not doing track by track. But if you want to do track by track, I mean, I don't have it lined up that way, but I can still talk about the songs.
Yeah, let's do it track by track because I think the issue is going to be I don't want to shit on Nevermind.
Yeah.
And then give
what,
a goose egg for 10.
Cody, go ahead and give an intro to Pearl Jam then, because my dog is currently scratching the bottom of the couch, so I'm going to fish something out for her. But go ahead.
Okay. So, in my opinion, Pearl Jam is not only one of the greatest bands of all time. I think that 10, in terms of its own superstardom, is arguably the best grunge record that came out around this time, right? So you get previous members of Green River, of Mother Love Bone. You get people who have been elaborating and hanging around in the Seattle music scene as grunge is stewing, right? So you get all of this wonderful kind of rundown into the valley. Eddie Vedder comes along. He moves to Seattle, decides to start singing, writing poetry, and things like that. And what happens is, I think you get a much better description and a much better plain-on viewpoint of what grunge really was when you listen to 10. It feels more organic. It's more exciting at certain points. It doesn't feel so structured. The best way I can describe 10 almost is if you took a bunch of dudes who really liked Pink Floyd and like Robin Trower, you know, and Steve Miller Band. But then you also kind of got him onto like Iggy and the Stooges. You know, you just gave him this little bit of like bite and said like, okay, yeah, here's just ramp it up a little bit. And for example, with the opening track on 10, which is Once, I mean, it flows in such a more organic way. Like, it feels like you're getting into something with that really cool guitar in the background, right? You get that awesome wash and Eddie Vedder coming in. And then once those big chords come in, dude, that is what grunge is. Eddie Vedder crushing singing. And beyond that, the instrumentation is so far beyond what Nirvana is doing at this point. Where Nirvana is doing a lot of like Kurt's playing chords, and then he's like doing a single pick, and Chris is carrying the rhythm with Dave. You've got two unbelievable guitar players. a fantastic bass player, a killer drummer, and then, best of all, you have Eddie Vedder, who would get mocked, down the road.
Yeah, it's weird. I think Eddie Vedder really is the secret weapon of Pearl Jam. I think his vocals range just takes it to a whole nother level.
It's crazy because he has a level of conviction on these songs where it sounds like somebody really. It's that moment in the Disney movie, or it's that moment in like the superhero movie where the superhero really gets to let go for a second. Like they are out in the desert and can just like, oh, I can just throw this boulder 1,000 miles in any direction and no one's going to get hurt. That's what it sounds like when Eddie Vedder gets going on Once, because he hits that first once upon a time. It's like, whoa, how?
So gnarly. Even before that, when he does that, I admit it. Like the second he does that, I'm like, yo, take me wherever you want to go, because I'm with you.
Yeah.
Like if we're talking opening tracks, like I said, it Smells Like Teen Spirit. Like you can't take away the sort of impact of that song. I get it. It's a good song. There's moments where it's a great song, but like when I turn on 10 and Once is the thing I'm greeted with, I get more energized. I get more pumped. And the second Eddie comes in, it's like, yeah, this is not even close for me. So you're going to see this a lot. Sorry, listener who thinks Nirvana is the greatest thing ever and Nevermind's the greatest record ever and Smells Like Teen Spirit is the greatest song of the 90s. Sorry, I like Once way more than Smells Like Teen Spirit.
I think pound for pound, Once is the more exciting. It's more accessible. And what I like, now this is a shitbag opinion. I'm going to tell you this right now as a fan of music. When I am able to go to like Walmart, dude, and buy a Nirvana shirt, you've lost some credibility. You've lost the fucking battle. I can't go to Walmart and buy a Black Flag shirt. I can't go to Walmart and buy a Dead Kennedy shirt. Why can I walk in and buy a Nirvana shirt? Because
it's the greatest thing the 90s ever released, dude.
Yeah, 2 records later, they have a song called Radio Friendly Unit Shifter, and it is straight up feedback. It is chaos. Boiled down chaos. I understand that, this record exploded. Man, eventually you have to take your own reins back and go, all right, hold on. We didn't want this. It's cool that it means so much to so many people. And if you're a listener listening to this, I promise you there are tracks on Nevermind that make me want to fucking front flip off of a house, dude. Just not this, and especially not In Bloom.
But the funny thing is, In Bloom's actually my favorite song off Nevermind. Because yeah, it is slow, and yeah, it is kind of like boring, if you want to put it that way. I don't find it boring at all, to be fair. There's something about this song, though. You talk about the quiet verse versus the loud chorus, and I think In Bloom really nails that, because it's a quiet verse. Like, he's like whispering, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that he does that Kurt Cobain mumble that he sometimes does that I think just kind of loses me at times. It's like, dude, what are you even saying? But when that chorus kicks in and it's just Dave Grohl doing the on the snare drum and just like straight into the chorus, it's a hype moment. It's a moment where I'm like, hell yeah, dude. Like if I was at the concert, I'd be like pushing people around. I'd be like throwing my fists up. But you're up against Pearl Jam's arguably, well, that's not even arguably. I was going to say their biggest single. I don't even know if that's true because I'm looking at other tracks on.
The other ones on here too.
Yeah, like I think their biggest like 4 songs are on this record, if not all of them, right? You get to Even Flow. Sorry, the second that guitar, boom, like, nope, sorry, you're done. It's over.
Listen, In Bloom is a perfectly fine song, and that is what I dislike about it. You cannot build this record up like it's the hottest shit that ever happened and then make song to a perfectly fine song. Let's look at other classic records that we've done on this podcast. You look at fucking 2112 by Rush. Every song. You look at Moving Pictures. Every song. I might have disagreed on a couple, but in comparison to this, Every song. Look at fucking Dark Side of the Moon. Every song is carrying its weight because it's all doing something cool, even if it's a reprise. Yo, In Bloom drops the ball in comparison to You Get to Even Flow. I mean,
it's carrying the torch so far. Like
it Even Flow is one of those songs where if like I can't describe it, it makes me just want to go to like Chuck E. Cheese. Like I hear it and I'm just like young again. I'm not old, but I'm like a younger person. Like it makes me want to go ride like a bike or ride my skateboard to the park and cause some shit on a basketball court. Like there's this relentlessness to its youthfulness that I love about it. Yet Eddie Vedder coming in, dude, singing his little fucking heart out like a lunatic, doing all the Eddie Vedder hits. The chorus to this song, $1 billion chorus.
it's massive. It's huge.
Unbelievable. The whole band are playing. Not playing anything boring. They're actually playing unique, defined parts. But Mike, this is a side tangent. Even Flow is a very important song to me because Even Flow is the first time that I ever saw somebody stage dive. For the music,
was it on the first note?
No. So in the music video to Even Flow, Eddie Vedder does two things which I think are legendary. The music video opens, he's talking to the lighting guy, and he goes, Turn these lights off, Josh. This isn't a TV studio. This is a fucking rock concert. And then you get that bow, boom, 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 boom,
Yep.
over. And then at the end, that's the first time I ever saw somebody do a stage dive. And that signaled something in my life. This level of pure carelessness. And this dude is going to do this fucking front flip into the crowd to an absolutely unbelievable kick-ass song. Pound for pound, Even Flow is Mike Tyson in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the chorus is incredible. The riff, like just the main riff, is such a good riff. And one of my favorite parts is after the guitar solo when they all get like quiet and like he's just doing the and then just and you just hear it like getting louder and louder until it goes right back into the chorus. Nah, dude. Like Nirvana's doing quiet, loud, but like Pearl Jam makes it cinematic.
Yeah.
Right? They make you like boil up and explode, where Nirvana just like turns the page. And it's for those reasons that like you said, Pearl Jam's just like, at least in my opinion, operating at a higher level in comparison to these records. So it just boggles my mind that people think that like Nevermind's the golden idol and Pearl Jam's 10 is just like, it's cool, it's a thing, like we laud it, but like, come on, man, I don't know. So yes, for me as well, Even Flow just decimates In Bloom, even though, like I said, In Bloom's probably my favorite song on Nevermind.
But yo, here's the crazy thing. You expect now Pearl Jam to like drop the ball. 2 songs in, all right. My brother in Christ, you get to Alive? This is the song where I had to look up when this record came out. I have heard, because it on the Nevermind side, Where It Come As You Are. Mm-hmm. 2 almost entirely different vibes. One real hopeful, real up, a lot of moving parts in comparison to Kurt Cobain, like, complaining. Just whining. 10 came out 33 years ago. This song still makes me want to, like we talked about on the Van Halen episode, they got 25,000 people in the stadium. Now they got to make them jump. This is the song where I go, all right, yeah, I'm sold. I'm sold on it. There's fretless bass, Mike, which is crazy. How often do you get fretless bass? Doing that cool slide up. It's got 3 fucking guitars happening. You got Eddie Vedder slowing it down. But once you get to that chorus, man, how do you write this? How do you write this? Now, Come As You Are is a cool song. Don't get me wrong. Dave's doing that little jazz counting on the drums. That's kind of funny.
You'll be surprised, Cody. I'm actually going to give this the Come As You Are.
That is hearsay.
Because I'll give you everything you said about Alive. It's great. It's awesome. It's got all the moving parts. It's got all that it needs to. But what really made me not to hate this, hate's a strong word, right? What makes me meh on this song is actually Rock Band 2. This is a very personal thing. So in Rock Band 2, Alive is in the track list for Rock Band 2. And if you don't know Rock Band 2 had a tour mode where you like start up a band and you start playing garages and then you amass followers and fans as you go through this career mode. And eventually you're like selling out stadiums, right? Little cool thing. I don't know what it was, man, but I swear to God, Rock Band 2 would give me Alive like every set list. Because you would make set lists because you're a band, right? You're not playing one-off songs. And for whatever reason, like Alive would come up like 75% of the time. So I've played this song hundreds of times. And it's one of those things where I've played it so much that now I kind of like, oh man, it is a very personal thing. I just give it to Come As You Are because one, I think Come As You Are is a great song. And two, when I hear Come As You Are, it still like excites me a little bit. Whereas I hear Alive, I'm like, yeah, it's good, but man, it doesn't really excite me anymore. In spite of the fact that I can admit it is, in fact, a great song.
Crazy song.
Very good.
Crazy song. All right, so Mike, would you like to start this next bout?
Well, see, here's the thing, though, is that we say things like Pearl Jam. I'll throw it in my own camp. I'll say things like Pearl Jam is decimating Nirvana throughout this whole thing. But the crazy thing is that if you look at Nevermind up to this point, 4 tracks in a row, like you've got mega hits. Breed is a pretty big song for this band. Maybe not as big as Smells Like Teen Spirit, maybe not as big as Come As You Are, but it's still like upper echelon of Nirvana songs. Whereas compared to Why Go on the Pearl Jam side, not a huge hit for Pearl Jam, right? In fact, if you've never heard this record, you've probably never heard this song. I don't know where else you would hear it. In spite of that, though, like I think the comparison I can make between these two songs is that one of them excites me and the other one is good. It's got everything you really want out of a good Nirvana song. But the problem is, man, like for this band to come out with their debut and also doing the same thing where it's like, yeah, Once is not a huge radio hit. Why Go is not a huge radio hit. But in the same vein as what Nirvana's doing, I'd say all 4 of these songs so far are killer songs. Why Go is great. Again, it's that grittiness that they bring to it that is just Nirvana's like gritty, but they're like cringy gritty. It's like sad teenager in the bedroom complaining about his parents. This gritty is like, nah, man, I'm about to like fight on the schoolyard because this dude's been giving me shit all week. Like that's the grittiness of Pearl Jam. Like in this bit where Eddie goes like, bah, some stupid fuck. Like,
hey, yo, I have that written down. It's so gnarly.
Every time I hear it, I chuckle. Not because it's cringy. I mean, at the end of the day, maybe it is. But like I hear it and I chuckle because I'm like, dude, that's so like stupid fuck. Like every time I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, dude. And then like the guitar solo on this record, like this one guitar solo in Why Go is better than every guitar solo, in my opinion, on Nevermind. Not that the guitar solos there when they do come up are bad, but like you just listen to the musicianship on display here. And I think that Pearl Jam's just doing it better. I'm sorry.
So, Breed is one of the 2 songs on this record that I will die for on Nevermind. And it is because all I wanted out of Nirvana, because when I got into Nirvana, my childhood best friend, that was his favorite band. So getting into Nirvana was we would listen to Nevermind, but then we would also listen to like all of the stuff off of Incesticide, all of the B-sides, the demos, everything off Bleach. So when I started getting a flavor for Nirvana, it was the gnarly, unprocessed, chaotic, like this is a band that you wouldn't like fuck with if you saw them at like the house show, And so every single time I hear Breed, I'm just like, yo, this whole record should have been this. Fast as fuck, dude. Gnarly. The bass guitar, disgusting. Guitar, slam it up, whatever, do it. Love Dave Grohl, playing drums super good. It's cool. But it's so simple in its execution. Because I think that's what this whole record should have been. In comparison to Why Go, Why Go is like everybody should go hang out with their friends in a parking lot, pass around like an apple bowl where you carve out a hole in an apple and you smoke weed out of it, and listen to this song. Because the riff fucking kicks ass. That part that Mike and I were talking about where he goes, "She's been diagnosed by some stupid fuck." Yo. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go fight the kid on the schoolyard. He shot me in the back of the head with a wet ball, a paper ball. Yeah, I'm going to punch him in the face. So for me, dude, this is a tie. Because okay. I love Breed so much. Because it's so just potent. When I think what happens is people look at this record and they hear every song like I hear Breed. Where it's like, whoa, this is incendiary. Like, no one's making this kind of racket. But Pearl Jam on Why Go, they almost do the musical execution of that instead of a attitude execution, which is, okay, well, we'll just make the parts a little more intense. We'll speed some stuff up, make it bigger. And it's crazy to think that this isn't one of the bigger Pearl Jam songs. Now, granted, if you went and saw Pearl Jam live, I mean, this would bring the house down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what would also bring the house down for Pearl Jam live is they're playing Why Go. And rather than just hard stop, they fade into black. Or they bring in black, the song, if you don't know the song. Really smart choice. I don't know what that choice was to just go right into black, but it just works, man. Because Why Go? I mean, like you said, it's bombastic, it's huge, it like pummels you, and then you just get like this, like audio, not audio mute, but it's like a guitar in the other room.
Yeah,
right? It's that like audio effect, and you're like, what's this? And then the boom, and just yeah. Black is really good. It's really damn good. There was a reason. So I think the huge songs on this record are Even Flow, Alive. You can throw in that camp. Black is definitely up there, and then the next song, which we'll get to. But I mean, there's a reason Black is like, this song, right? If you're listening right now and going, I don't know if I know that song, just play the first minute. You'll be like, oh yeah, I know
this song.
Yeah, if you listen to radio for any amount of time, you've heard this song at some point. And it's really good, right? There's nothing I can fault this song on at all. By comparison, there's nothing I can really fault on Lithium either, right? Another huge Nirvana hit. And it just like, weird to say our Nirvana song is catchy. The whole, I'm so happy, but today, like that's just like a catchy little rhythm. Quiet verse, big chorus. It's Nirvana's staple at this point. So really, when you boil these songs down to like which one is better, I kind of fall on your argument on the last one, which is like, I don't really know if one's better than the other. For me, it comes down to a preference, right? If I have my choice, which one do I want to hear? It's got to be Black. Sorry. I think Black just does more for me than Lithium does. So once again, I've got to go with the Pearl Jam camp on this one. I
very rarely say this on the podcast. I hate Lithium.
Okay.
I have an active I am active hater mode. This song is Drake and I am Kendrick Lamar. That's how much I dislike this fucking song.
You hate the way he walks, the way he talks, the way he dresses.
I hate all of it. Okay, here's the problem. This song, if you close your eyes, it sounds like a 12-year-old dragging their like truest bank father into a Hot Topic to buy a 21 Pilots t-shirt.
Yeah.
And it makes it makes me cringe, but in such a physical, it makes my hands want to close. Because every time I hear this song, I think about being a 13-year-old trying to drag my mom into Hot Topic, being like, "Oh, look at that T-shirt. It's got the F word on it. Isn't that cool? Aren't I edgy?" And it's like, no, dude, you're 13. You're fucking pizza face right now, dude. In comparison to Black, which is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
This feels like this is the Pink Floyd song for me. It feels like a real modern attempt at like Goodbye Blue Sky. Real subtle, and then when it comes in, when everybody comes in, the world is crashing. Beyond that, instrumentation is tight. Eddie Vedder holding that giant note out at the end of this song is fantastic. And this feels like a song that happened out of like just jamming. That's nice. In comparison to Lithium, which I don't know. It pulls such a visceral response out of me that every time I hear Lithium, I'm like, I'm turning this fucking shit off, dude. Like, I won't even listen to it as a joke. If someone's like, play a bad song, I wouldn't even play this.
Wow.
Because it just makes me think about like just TikTok kids. Like, stop, dude, you're at the mall. Stop doing a TikTok dance, man. I was you. Stop doing the TikTok dance.
We've hit the old grizzled veteran. I was you, right? I was you at this time. I know you're being an idiot.
I was you. Stop. You stole a copy of Young James Bond from Barnes and Nobles, dude. You're not cool. Like, ugh. And you get the Black, and it's like, it's beautiful. So
yeah, what's funny is that, like you said earlier, a lot of people make fun of Eddie Vedder for his vocals, and there are times where, sure, I get it, where it's very like, and it's like, okay, yes, we can joke about Eddie Vedder, but really at the end of the day, he's like a great vocalist. I don't know why we can't joke about Kurt Cobain in that way. Why? Because he killed himself? Like, are we just not, because he's the voice of a generation, quote unquote, which fuck you if you think that.
Fucking
like,
crazy.
Ridiculous. I'm sorry. Like, you listen to these lyrics, or you look at these lyrics and you're like, okay, what are you really saying that's so poignant here? You're just like an angry person. Like, I'm an angry person too sometimes. You know, what are we saying? That we're fed up with the world? Yeah. Okay, cool. Why does that make you the voice of a generation? I'm making so many people mad. I know people who are like this, who are like, no, Kurt Cobain's like the greatest of all time. You don't know what you're talking about. Nevermind's the greatest thing the 90s ever produced. I'm like, I just don't see it.
Crazy.
Like, we're going to listen to Black and make fun of this guy, but then we're going to listen to Lithium and not make fun of this guy. But, you know, like, Eddie Vedder's doing his yodeling. Kurt Cobain's doing his mumbling, right? I mean, I praised it earlier, but like it's like, who are we really going to make fun of here? I don't think either of them deserve to be made fun of. I think they're both good in their own right.
Yeah.
But don't give me the shit that Kurt Cobain's the better vocalist. I don't want to hear it. Like, you're ridiculous if you think that. I'm sorry. Anyway, moving on. So like I said, I didn't know we were going to do track by track, but this is why I like this, because you get probably my favorite track by track on the whole thing here, which is Polly versus Jeremy. And here's why I really like this. You get Polly, right? And I actually don't own Nevermind on vinyl. I own 10 on vinyl. I don't own Nevermind. So I don't know when the record flips over. Do you happen to know when side B starts?
I think it's Territorial Pissings.
Okay, so I figured Polly was either the beginning of side B or the end of side A, right? So you get Polly, you get this nice little acoustic riff, right? No drums, no real bombastic. It's fine. It's not the greatest thing you've ever heard, but what it is really is basic. It's basic acoustic riff that you like learn a year into playing guitar. Like, you could hit this no problem, right? You're not playing Creeping Death, you're playing Polly by Nirvana. The fact that it's basic isn't an issue for me, but what the thing I'm stressing here is that it's basic, and by extension, I'm sorry, it kind of makes it boring. What I will give Polly is that I think the lyrical content is interesting. And by interesting, I mean to say that it's like pretty disturbing what it's talking about if you like really break down the lyrics. You compare that to Jeremy, which is also talking about a really disturbing subject matter, right? But the difference here is that it's not fucking basic, right? They take a disturbing subject matter and they go, all right, it's gross, it's weird, it's odd, it's kind of off-putting, but let's make it a hit. And God, did they make it a hit. I've never heard Polly once on the radio because it doesn't deserve to be on the radio. Jeremy? There's a reason this is one of their 3 biggest songs, right? Jeremy takes its subject matter and then makes you invested. It makes you care. Polly does not make me invested at all. It's like, okay, this is interesting content you're lyrically talking about, but instrumentally, I'm like falling asleep. Like, do something more. I'm sorry, Jeremy washes this away like a tsunami.
So I actually really like Polly.
Okay.
But it's because of the intensity that you get. So this is a real, this, you know, it's like not secret, but like this is a real story that happened. Yeah. There was a dude kidnapped a 14-year-old hitchhiker and did a whole bunch of fucked up shit to her. But what I like about this song is like, you think of a band like Slayer, for example, and you think of like Angel of Death. About who's that? Joseph Mengele. Mm-hmm. Right. It's like, okay, yeah, they really did a lot to make the song have that kind of vibe of like, oh, this guy's like a Nazi doctor doing real fucked up shit. I like that this song is just one guy, a little bit of drums maybe, singing from his perspective. Because there's a line at the end. Polly says my back hurt. Polly says her back hurts. She's just as bored as me, and she caught me off my guard. Amazes me the will of instinct. I like that. I think it's cool. Because there's no like positivity to it besides like, oh good, this like woman escaped, sadly, being kidnapped and like tortured. But in comparison, you get to Jeremy, which is in my top 10 favorite songs of all time.
It's real damn good.
Such a crazy song. Mike, I don't know if you were a kid. Were you like a weird kid?
I mean, I think so, but maybe compared to like other weird kids, I don't know. Like
not super weird, but like
how do you define weird?
Did you hang out with a lot of popular people?
No, not really.
Were you into nerd culture before nerd culture became a thing?
I guess. Like, I became a fan of Marvel when the Marvel Cinematic Universe was a thing. Like, but like, I knew of the character. Like, that's just a random example. Like, I played video games. I didn't go out to like sporting events. I wasn't in a sport. I think that kind of speaks to a lot. I was in band, right?
Okay, so like that's like kind of what I mean, like a weird kid. Not like necessarily an outcast, but more of like a number. Yes. You had your own things, but you didn't fit into the societal norms at that moment. I myself was a weird kid. I got bullied. You probably got bullied. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. This song is fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's about this kid who got bullied, so he goes into his classroom, fucking shoots himself in the head. But they don't ever say specifically. They elaborate on it.
But okay, so you're right. They never explicitly say he killed himself. But the line Jeremy spoke in class today, I'm positive is him shooting himself, right? Which is so like, oh my God, like that's lyrical content that's doing something. Whereas like Smells Like Teen Spirit, In Bloom, Come As You Are, like it's not lyrical content that's like doing something like that. It's like actual literature. I'm sorry to like be that sort of pretentiousness of it, but like that's hitting a literature camp of like lyricism where I don't think Nirvana is.
One of, in my opinion, the greatest lines that the greatest sections that anybody have ever written in a song is in Jeremy. And it is from the perspective of one of the bullies who is being interviewed about Jeremy killing himself. Clearly, I remember picking on the boy. He seemed like a harmless little fuck. But we unleashed a lion. He gnashed his teeth and bit the recessed lady's breast. How could I forget? And then he hit me with a surprise left. My jaw left hurting. Ooh, I dropped wide open. Just like the day. Oh, like the day I heard. That tells you everything. Mm-hmm. That is if you took essentially all along the Watchtower, you took those 12 lines and you put it on a piece of paper. What'd you hear? Killed himself. Why did he kill himself? I bullied him. What happened when you bullied him? Hit me. That's beautiful. Why'd you bully him? Why'd he hit you? Because I was bullying him. It just circles. But you have... Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was gonna say, because you don't expect him to go that far with it, right? You expect to bully the kid, haha, it's funny. Oh shit, he killed himself. Like I didn't mean to do that. Like I didn't want him to do that. Yeah. I think everything across the board with Jeremy is just hitting at such a higher level than I'm sorry, anything on Nevermind, right? I think Jeremy itself, the one song can outmatch any song on Nevermind, personally, I think.
Yeah. And then you get, dude, we're not even talking about that, the ending. You got Eddie Vedder pulling out this vocal performance where he's hitting these ooh woes. I mean, they're pulling out from your fucking heart, man. That's the way that he sings every song on this record. It's like the only way I can describe it is like if you just found out you were in remission from cancer. There's so much oomph behind everything. And it's so unbelievably amazing. And of course, this is a huge song. But it deserves to be a huge song. It absolutely deserves that credit because it's not just some fucking bullshit 4-chord thing. It's a busy song with moving parts, with a beautiful story. My favorite part about the song is right before they go into the ending of that song, Eddie Vedder sings, try to erase this from the blackboard. Mm-hmm. That's cool. Good for you, man. Good for you for writing that, you know? I bet this sucked to write, but like, man, what a wonderful song in comparison to Polly, which like, I don't know, this is gonna sound fucked up. I'd much rather take like a vague suicide than hearing a woman get tortured with a blowtorch. That's two different things.
But I think it also speaks to the content itself where like, yeah, both these topics are like hard topics that maybe I don't want to consider, but like I would much rather listen to Jeremy, not because I think I'll take that over like the content of whatever. I'll take Jeremy because I just think it's the greater song at the end of the day. And I think if both bands were tasked with, okay, let's make a song, but based on harsh lyrical content and hard stuff, like I think Pearl Jam aced it. Yeah, it's a disturbing song, but like it's also beautiful. It's also iconic. It's also amazing.
I agree.
So from there, so this is where I guess both records flip over, because I know for a fact Jeremy is the last song on side A, which, by the way, if we could retrace for a second, look at that side A.
Crazy.
Like unbelievable. Side A for Nevermind, yeah, it's real good, but like side A of 10 is like, whoa, dude. So you flip it over, right? And in the case of Nevermind, you get Territorial Pissings, which for me is like the epitome of like 90s skater montage. Like when I hear the song, all I see is like kids doing ollies and like little kick flips on their skateboards. It feels like Dave Grohl took this song. I don't know if this is the case, but it feels to me like they were in the studio writing this album and Dave Grohl's like, okay, I got one. It's called Territorial Pissings. Like, this is what I want to do. It's so Dave Grohl influenced throughout, at least to me. Like, you can hear some early Foo Fighters in this stuff. Next to the absolute most polar opposite you can get with Oceans on the opening of side B for 10, which is not at all like fast, heavy, whatever. It's this very like soft, quiet, beautiful song. It's basic. Like I'm going to call Oceans a little basic, right? In the same way I called Polly basic, but the difference here is that in its basicness, it becomes really interesting. Like they add these flourishes that I think take it to a next level. In particular, the ooze that Eddie does on the chorus, like it's gorgeous, dude. It's angelic, right? And it takes it that little step further where if you didn't have that, it'd be like, okay, this is a very like basic song. It's kind of boring. But it's not, because they know how to like add the flourishes you need to go, oh, wait a minute. Like this is actually really good stuff. It's hard to compare these two because they're such polar opposites. But once again, if I had to pick one, I'm sorry, I'm going Pearl Jam because I think it's just the more interesting song.
This is the second one.
Okay. It sounds like a Cody song.
Yeah. But it's because, same thing. This is what this whole record should have been. You listen to Bleach, and it's like everything is distorted. Everything has this like weight to it. This song could light a nuke, man. I love Territorial Pissings, but I love it because you show this song to people who like maybe have only ever heard like of a Nirvana hits, and then they're like, "What's this? I can't do a TikTok to this." And it's like, yeah, right, because this is like what it's all about.
Yeah.
Play it fast, play it sloppy, make my ears hurt, turn everything up, all the knobs on the drum, all the knobs on the bass, all the knobs on the guitar, then yell into that microphone because you're going to elicit a response. Give me a tall stage and make me jump off of it.
I don't know if the record company ever came in and forced Nirvana to make radio hits like the radio hits on this album, but this is clearly one where they're like, no, this is not going to be a radio hit. Like, we're not interested. This is for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a perfect song. In comparison to Oceans, I love Oceans. It feels more like an experience. I think it's meant to elicit the response of like going out into the ocean and like surfing, you know, hang out at night on the beach with your friends. I love that. I love me some fretless bass. But of the two, Territorial Pissings, at least for me, every time I hear this song, I'm like, good for you. You snuck this onto apparently the biggest record of the 90s, which is not impossible. I cannot believe that's a real statement that they said.
A lot of people say it. It's not just like random people. It's like the majority of people I feel think it's the greatest. But clearly we don't. So we're the contrarians, I guess. I would agree. So, Drain You versus Porch. If I'm keeping up with the track by track here, I think that's the correct matchup here. Another mega hit from Nirvana off Drain You, and it's a mega hit for a reason. Like it's great, it's good, it's fun. I don't have much to say about Drain You because everyone's heard it. So what can I possibly say that's new or interesting? And two, I think it's pretty great. I don't really have an issue with it. But the thing about Porch off of 10 is that, I don't know about you, Cody, but this is easily my least favorite song on 10.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I think it's kind of forgettable. It's not bad. It's not even mediocre. I think it's pretty decent and pretty good, but like, man, I'm sitting here right now going like, okay, which one is Porch? And like, I don't do that with any of the other songs. I know like every other song on here, like the back of my hand, but Porch, I'm like, yeah, how's that one? It starts with like that spoken word bit. And then what happens? Oh yeah. That like, it's one of those things where it's like, Drain You is like, oh, Drain You. Yeah. One baby said to another, I'm glad to have met, like you immediately know that song and you immediately know like most of it. Yeah. For this one, I actually going to give it to Nirvana on this one.
So Drain You is, in my opinion, probably the most, I can't say that. In my opinion, one of the most lackluster songs I've ever heard in my life.
Okay.
It feels like I'm shopping at Sears.
You know what? It is very much like a Walmart song. Like you're going to hear this walking through Walmart.
Yeah. And I can hear it in my head and I go, I mean, it's okay. There's nothing worse than an okay song. Because you can write a bad song. And it takes a lot to write a good song. But just to write something, you couldn't put any more work into this. It does the same thing like 5 times. Okay, I mean, that's... Okay, it's like I'm standing in the middle of a room and it's like, well, I guess I could like sit on the couch. But I'm still going to be in the room. Like, it's not going to adjust anything. And at least with Porch, there's so much like energy going into that song. The way that Eddie Vedder comes into that song, it makes me laugh every single time I hear, well, what the fuck is this world? Or the 2 million dude? It's like, what happened here? Did you just do like a line of coke? Where is this cadence coming from? And then the whole rest of the band comes in. You get to the middle of the song, they have like the bridge from Sheep off of Animals. And you're like, who pulled this out? I don't know. This is a crazy statement that I wrote. This song makes me feel the way that you feel about Bulls on Parade. Every time I hear this song, I just get like... I get the inkling to stand in a crowd of middle-aged men and push each other in a pit. I get the feeling I'm like, I could push a dad right now.
Yeah, I do not feel that way at all. It's a complete 180 from my opinion. Again, not a bad song at all. I don't think it's trash. It's just if there's one song on here that I'm like, it's my least favorite, it's got to be Porch.
That's totally fair, but can I sway your opinion?
Sure, go ahead.
Is it better to have an interesting song or something that is just by the numbers?
Okay, but for me, like Drain You, I wouldn't say Drain You's interesting, right? Like you said, it's pretty simple radio rock song, but you know, I listen to Drain You, and it's one of those things where I'll sing the first couple lines, I'll sing the chorus. You know, I know this song, I know it in my heart, and the reason I know it in my heart is because I like it. I like this song. If I didn't like the song, I wouldn't listen to it. Right? I'd turn it off. I'd flip the channel. Porch doesn't do that for me. Where like Porch comes on, like for me at least, when Porch comes on, I'm like, oh shit, yeah. Like every other song on 10 does that for me. Porch, it's like, okay, yeah, it's that one song on 10 that like is there, and I don't know. Like I would still give the edge to Drain You personally.
I respect that.
Lounge Act versus Garden.
So here's a crazy opinion. Garden is a really good Alice in Chains song. As a Pearl Jam song, doesn't do much.
So this is my number 2 least favorite, but I like it more than Porch personally.
In comparison to Lounge Act, which, yeah, okay. It feels like they took a whole bunch of Beach Boys songs. They did like a dissertation on My Sharona. And then they just did like a parody version to the best of their ability. Because you get that big old bass coming in that beginning. And I mean, if that bass doesn't make you stand up like that fucking meme of that dude at the cookout when they start shooting. You ever seen that?
I'm not sure. Maybe I saw the image.
So it's like a TikTok of this dude eating outside at a cookout, and a whole bunch of gunfire happens in the distance. Everybody starts running, but he stands up like Batman. He just looks over. That is how I feel about Lounge Act. I go, oh, yeah, all right, you got me. And I like that it's up and it's bright and it's witty. In comparison to Garden, which is a good Alice in Chains song, killer blues jam, but of the two, Lounge Act takes the cook from me.
I think that Lounge Act is very fun. Like it's pretty, like you said, the bass intro, obviously it's got the sort of energy it needs to. But it's another song for me that's kind of forgettable. Like this is another song where I'm like, okay, it's got that sick bass intro. What happens after the bass intro? Like what happens later? What's the chorus of the song again? Like I have to like do that in my head where it's like, Smells Like Teen Spirit? No, I know that whole song. In Bloom? Know the whole song. Come As You Are? Know the whole song. We're supposed to Garden, which Garden is also a song where it's like, it's a deep cut on 10, admittedly. This is not one you're going to hear on the radio a lot. But there are two things in Garden I really like. First of all, that's a hell of a power chorus, right? It's very much an Alice in Chains power chorus, but it is a power chorus that you have to give its credit. And I think the guitar solo on Garden's pretty great. I don't want to overlook that guitar solo because I think it's, again, wonderful, and it's better than any other guitar solo on Nevermind. So, like, for me, I remember more about Garden than I do Lounge Act. So, in this personal track by track, I would actually give it to Garden.
I respect that. This is turned into such a funny episode.
Well, what's interesting, like, I'm trying to keep the numbers in my head here. I think I fucked up because it seems like what I've clearly understood here is that we're far outweighing 10 here. Like 10 is like taking this away by a massive lead. And I don't think Nevermind's going to catch up, admittedly. But if I'm understanding this correctly, Percy, would you not hit the chord? If I'm understanding this correctly, I've only got 2 for Nevermind, and I've got 6 for 10, which I don't think we've ever had that much of like a swap, sway, whatever. And yet we're talking about like one of the greatest records of the 90s, apparently, and it's like losing hard. Now, if we got somebody who lived through the 90s on here, they'd probably say like, no, dude, like Nevermind's taking this away by a landslide, but we don't. We're guys who grew up in the 2000s, so That's what it is.
We're gonna have to re-record this with Jason.
I don't know how Jason feels about Nirvana or Pearl Jam for that point. I had a colleague in college. His name's Jeremy Griffin. Shout out to him if he ever listens to this. He was actually a guy who was I was like a teaching assistant in my master's program, and he was like my mentor basically for that creative writing class we did together. And he would go on and on, because I would argue that Rage Against the Machine personally is my favorite band of the 90s. And he would say, no, Nirvana is the best band of the 90s. So we'd have like literally 30-minute debates about this topic. So I'm sure if he heard this episode, he'd be really peeved, because we used to get pretty heated back then. But, maybe he can give his comment in the comments of this post or this video or whatever. So moving on from there, though, Stay Away versus Deep.
I don't have...
Yeah, for the audio listener, Cody is shaking his head.
Bro, okay, this is crazy. I hate Stay Away.
Man, as much as we agree on like this being an over encumbered and like overblown record, probably my favorite cut on like the second half at least. That's not true. One of my favorite cuts on side B has to be Stay Away. I think it's a fun, energized song. Like, this is the kind of energy I want through the whole thing, personally.
It just like, it sounds crazy. It feels like a Blink-182 song. It's like so... The fun thing about Lounge Act is it feels like if you and me were standing at a bar making fun of people. That's what Lounge Act feels like. It feels like when Zach and I get together and we just like joke about dumb stuff at other people's expenses. This song is like, oh, we just wanted to write a fun song. It's like, no, stop. What are you doing? Cut it out. It's a boring song in comparison to Deep. Bro.
Might be the coolest bar band song ever.
Brother, yo, it's like you walked into a Black Sabbath practice. No hold bar. That intro comes in and it's like, oh, okay. You guys aren't playing around. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it just gives me like bar band vibes, but like in the best way, where you're sitting there, you're drinking, like, yeah, this band's cool. They're playing, and then they start playing Deep, and you're like, holy shit, like these guys are killing it right now.
This is the start of their second hour. They just went to the bathroom, got drinks, came back, didn't even say hello. Somebody just hit that wow. Yeah, crazy.
And then when he goes, too deep, yeah, like, oh my god, dude, like that's where I'm taking my beer and like throwing it across the way. Like,
I am shaking it like a bottle of champagne across the bar.
Yeah,
people were getting upset. Somebody smells like Heineken Zero.
Yeah, I personally like Stay Away, but Deep is such a cool song. And the funny, like, Deep's not a big single, right? And yet I still like it more than Stay Away, which I've heard on the radio before, or at least it's a more well-known Nirvana song.
Oh yeah, I mean, for people listening at home, this record deserves some credit, even if it was just convincing a bunch of disenfranchised youth to like grow their hair out and wear flannel t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's cool, man. Just in comparison to a record that was released before it and is musically more interesting, it's going to get washed. I mean, it's like measuring your high school jazz class against the Miles Davis group. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, man. It's Miles Davis. You don't get a participation trophy when you're in the room of the cool. That's not how it works, man. Because Nirvana, like, a good band later and before. It's not right now.
I think this is their best stuff, personally. But when in comparison to 10, I mean, it's just not there, I mean, okay, so we get the next matchup, which I think is not a matchup I'd want to have, which is On a Plane versus Release. I think the more interesting Makes Sense matchup is Something in the Way versus Release.
Ooh. Yeah, I agree.
So let's just talk about On a Plane on its own.
I like this song. Fine
and forgettable is how I would phrase it. Another song, it's far from terrible, but it's another song where I'm like, okay, how does that song start? What is that? What's the chorus of that one? Like, it's hard when you're on an album with such mega hits, but that's what it is, right? Not every song here is a mega hit. not every song here hits as hard as the side A of this record, right? Side B kind of falters, honestly. And when I try and think of On a Plane, I'm like, I kind of struggle to think about what this song is or what happens.
Yeah, I like On a Plane. I think it's fun, but like I don't have much to say about it.
Right.
It's
passable.
Yeah, there's cool bass stuff happening, but like beyond that, it's just a rock song. It's like just Blur, you know? Not even like good Blur. You're just getting fucking Blur.
See, this sounds like the bar band that's like never gonna make it. Like this is the bar band that you're like, yeah, they'll probably be playing bars for ever. Maybe they'll get like a little bit of a break and play like an opener for somebody, but like they're not making it to, you know, the big stadiums where you hear Deep and you're like, yeah, these guys are gonna make it easy.
Yeah, or Deep is the bar band of people who have already lived that whole life.
Yeah,
and they like, you know, they got kids, they got a job. Their wife is like, hey, listen, you and Frankie and the boys can play at the watering hole. And there's like people who come, they're like, you were in Mr. Big, and it's like, yeah, I was. We're just jamming now.
Yeah, Deep is the bar band where people go out every week to see them.
Yeah,
at the same bar every night. On a Plane is like, I just happen to be here drinking. I don't know who these guys are, but they're okay. Like it's fine.
I'm gonna go outside and smoke a cigarette. That's what I feel about On a Plane.
Hold my beer. I'll be back.
Yeah. Well, then okay. So then you want to do Release against Something in the Way?
I think it's way more interesting of a conversation because I think both these songs are doing a similar thing, which is in the case of Release, it's the closing track. And you could argue that Something in the Way is the closing track, even though it's not because Endless Nameless comes after this. But Something in the Way kind of feels like a closing moment, a closing statement, I guess. I really like Something in the Way. I think it's very interesting. You haven't had, at least in my opinion, you haven't had Nirvana this quiet on this record. You haven't had them this subdued on this record. They've had their moments, but like this is like candlelight in the corner, and Kurt Cobain's just like in his room playing by himself, and he's just like doing this one song with these lyrics. We're getting mumble Kurt Cobain, but I like it here, right? I like that this song never gets loud, which is a very odd thing to say, but I like that it stays like subdued and quiet the whole way through. And as a side note, the Batman movie that came out a few years ago used this song very well.
Yes.
So I'll give it that credit as well. But Release, dude, like, oh man. I feel so bad just like trampling over Nevermind, but come on. Like, the thing about Release is that it's doing so much in like very simple terms. It's kind of a basic song again, but like what these musicians are doing with it. And I think I don't know if this is a rumor or if it's actually the true story. I'm pretty sure Eddie just made up the lyrics on the spot. Like the guys were like in the studio just like creating something, and Eddie came in and he's like, huh. And then he just like started. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not that big of a Pearl Jam fan to know. Whether it's true or not, what Eddie is doing on here, this is my favorite performance from Eddie across the entire record. I think his stuff on Release is just absolutely beautiful. And when he gets to like the Release, man, like I'm not good, but you know, when he does that, it's like, man, I'm like lifting up to heaven in this moment. This is where music is like touching my soul. Something in the Way doesn't touch my soul. I like it. It's cool. It's got a really cool vibe that I like, but like Release is like releasing something in me that Nirvana's not. So once again, to just do it one more time, gotta go Pearl Jam here.
I have to agree, but I want to talk about Something in the Way for a moment. Because I think that because Endless Nameless, that song comes after 13 minutes of silence on the CD. So you have to listen to the CD, and then what happens is you just leave it in the CD player. And it's 13 minutes of silence, and then it's that song. So to end the record on this is crazy to just have Kurt Cobain, because he like sat, like laid down on a couch and just like sung it and played it like as quietly as he could.
Mm-hmm.
And Butch Vig was like, we're just going to put a mic by your head. Just sing when you want to. I think that's so beautiful. And it's hard to talk about Nirvana without kind of the elephant in the room existing, just like with Joy Division, you know, or In Excess, any band, Linkin Park. Like, but at the same time, you have to be able to talk about music in just a constructive criticism. You know, I think to end Nevermind this way is such a like a fun joke, because they had to have known this record was going to be unbelievable. I don't know if they expected it to turn Nirvana into a bunch of deities, you know, and to send them to superstardom. But I think it's really funny to release your record where the first song is going to be a calling card for a generation, and then end it with this story about being homeless, living underneath of a bridge. That's crazy. In comparison with Release, it feels like the culmination of all the hard work that you would do ending your record. Being like, oh, hey, you know, we're in the studio for like one more day. And after that, we're done. It's going to go get mixed and mastered. This is all the time we have. You want to do just one more cool little thing. And what I love about Release is it does one of my favorite tricks where they do that like minute-long false stop, pull it right back into once. I love that. I love it so much. And it's such a shame because I feel like I wanted this conversation to be so much more. But man, it's just like Pearl Jam, better players, made better art. And I think in comparison of when Nevermind was released to today to when this was released, I think 10 as a work of art showcases better. It's not as whiny. It's not as frustrating. Now, there are moments on 10 that are absolute masterpieces. Mm-hmm. Or, sorry, on Nevermind that are absolute masterpieces. But 10 feels like something that was made to be almost a time capsule of a moment, but also timeless. And I think that's the cool thing about Release, is it feels like the 90s, but it also feels like forever. You know, Kiss could have wrote Release.
Yeah. Now, do you want to speak briefly about Endless Nameless?
It's not even like a real song.
For me, it's very Daughters, right? The band. This sounds like something Daughters made like early on. And you're right. Is that it's not? It's just kind of noise. But people say that Swans is noise, that Daughters is noise, that Death Grips is noise, and I always hate to say like, no, those are really great bands. So I can't also sit here and go, no, Endless Nameless is just noise, right? I can't be that guy because then I'm a hypocrite. So, but it also is very much like, hey, it's just something we did. I don't think they really were looking at this as like, oh, this is really like we actually tried to do something here. It's like, hide it. It's a hidden track. Like, make some people won't even hear it, and that's fine.
I think then if we want to talk about it briefly, it is a shame that they didn't put it on the main record.
I think that would have been a very interesting statement if this was actually like the last song. That's a very interesting way to like end your record. And I kind of would have respected it as well.
Yeah, because you have moments like Breed and Territorial Pissings where it's like, you know, you're taking the glove off. You know, the safety is off of the chainsaw. We have the chainsaw and it is running. That's what's cool about those songs. I would have loved if they wouldn't have done this as a hidden track and just slammed it on the end and said, all right, now you're getting it. Yep. Just chaos. Because like I said at the beginning of this episode, I love The Chariot. I love Dillinger Escape Plan. I love Daughters. But at least they have the audacity to release that. and make it known. You don't have to sit through 13 minutes of silence to get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, along came The Chudge is a song that you have to hear on Hell Songs. You don't get around it, you know? I don't know.
Yeah. I I think I got the numbers wrong, but it's very clear that 10 just takes this away by very wide margins. If I'm not mistaken, if I did the numbers correctly, I think I had 8 for 10. No. See, I don't even know if I did. I think I had like 9 for 10 and 2 for Nevermind, right? And I think you had more picks for Nevermind than I did, but not by many, right?
It might have been 2 more.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 for Nevermind, and then the rest for 10. Because, like you said, I think a great way to like end the whole thing is just to say that, like, in my opinion, at least, I think Nevermind is one of easily the most overrated records in any genre of music, in any decade of music. I think it's by far and away, like, I might call it the most overrated piece of art I've ever seen. I think it's good. I think it's got great moments, but to call it the greatest thing from a decade when I could literally name 50 albums better than Nevermind that came out that decade, it's just absurd to me. I just don't understand it. And, you know, like I said, I've had conversations with guys like Jeremy who think this is the greatest thing in the 90s, and I'm never convinced. I'm never like, oh, okay, I see what you like. It's always like, that just sounds like you're part of that era, and that's why it's so important to you, which, like, I get it. Like, there's records that came out in the 2000s that, like, I was quote unquote there for, and they mean something to me. But very often I think of my like favorite records of all time, and I either was not alive for it, or I found it later in life from when it came out.
Yeah.
And like, those are the records that really mean something to me. Whereas compared to 10, I think 10's like one of the most underrated records of all time. Like, the idea that this isn't number one. Now, is it number one of the 90s? I don't know about that, right? I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but I would put this above Nevermind any day of the week in terms of like the greatest thing the 90s ever produced. Like, come on. To me, it's no question. It's no argument. So yeah, personally, I'll take 10 every single day over Nevermind. There's a reason I have 10 on vinyl and I don't have Nevermind on vinyl.
Yeah.
That's just my thoughts.
I absolutely agree. I think it's such a shame, right? Because someone's going to listen to this and they're going to get real upset. But take it from maybe our viewpoint. Listen to these records 3 or 4 times back to back to back. Listen to one directly following the other. Pearl Jam does it better. Now, is there maybe more passion with Nirvana? Maybe. Does Kurt Cobain have one of my favorite quotes ever, which I think I made mention of last episode, but Kurt Cobain once said, "Punk rock should mean freedom, liking and accepting anything that you like, playing whatever you want, as sloppy as you want, as long as it's good and it has passion." But the problem is sometimes that passion has to translate into actual musical communication. And when you get a band as good as Pearl Jam, swinging out the fences on their first record with a song even like just Jeremy, you know, even like Why Go, even like Black. Come on, dude. You know? You're allowed to love things from your childhood. But like, just like I wouldn't eat anything that came out of one of those creepy crawler gummy machines right now. I think maybe it's time for people to put their love and exuberance for Nevermind to bed. And take a look at it and go, hold on, man, this other record is way better.
Way, way better. I completely agree.
Yeah.
So as far as an exercise of having 2 separate bands for the first time, it was an interesting one in that the one band got completely stomped on from the other band. But I don't know, it opens up the door to do future matchups like this. I think most of our future matchups will still be one artist and 2 albums from them. But like I said in the beginning of the episode, I don't think there was a Pearl Jam episode or a Nirvana episode that made sense as much as this made sense. So that's why we did it.
I'm trying to think about, oh man, we should almost do like a grunge tournament.
Well, that's why behind the scenes here. That's why I like the matchups I sent you, which was Faceless versus Dirt and Super Unknown versus Bad Motorfinger. Other grunge acts that, of that time period, also lauded, also respected. And then when you complete all of those, then you bring them together and say, okay, but out of all of these, which one is the best?
Yeah. Well, hey, that's a conversation for down the road.
Yep. For another time. So for now, we will say thank you for listening. Thank you for being you. And we'll see you on the next one.
Once again, that is Michael Bulgarius Kane.
You didn't even say it right, Cody. Come on now.
Pronounce it for me.
Boagrius.
My name is Cody Boagrius Constantina as Michael Bulgarius
Okay.
Kane.
Sure.
We've been Album Fight Club.
We have.
Yeah, take care.